Hello, I believe we're back. I'm just getting my random number generator out. So we'll go 1 to 25. And like I said, if you have any ideas for words to be added to the page, those words can be nouns, can be verbs, can be adjectives or adverbs. And if I think that they are up to par with the randomness that I have on the current page, or even better, I will add them to the new page when I get around to making that. We did already have this number, so I'm going to keep going until I get a new one. We do have a new one. So the noun is a 2 by 4, which, if you don't know what that is, it's a piece of wood. It's the normal piece of wood that you see when you go to maybe Lowe's or Home Depot. Our second number is 20, which is mourn, and that is the verb mourn, as in mourning a loss. And our third number is 12, which is all knowing. We had that already. We'll go for another. 24, which is starving. Okay, so this is an interesting combination. I put that where the paper goes, and this needs to go back in my backpack so I don't forget it when I go to class. So, we have a 2 by 4. Now we need to decide how these words are ordered. If you have any suggestions and you want to post those in the chat while I'm talking here, go for it. But first off, obviously we have 2 by 4. That is the main subject of the topic at hand. And so we need to decide that whether the 2 by 4 is starving, or if the 2 by 4 is mourning, or both. So that may be something that we can go through. So I think we can go with both. So let's look at the life of a 2 by 4 to begin with. So we start off and we have a tree that we're growing here, and this tree gets nice and large, and it's very proud of itself. And at this point in time, it is one whole entity, so it is fairly happy with its life. And then we'll color it in a little bit here just to get some more texture. I knew that was going to happen eventually. I believe down in the corner right there is where the problem was. There we go. So we have this tree, and it's a happy tree. No Bob Ross pun intended. Um, but this tree is fairly happy. I just think that most nature is happy in general. So we have this happy tree, and it may have some cheeks, but it is overall happy. But then comes along Mr. Chainsaw, and Mr. Chainsaw comes, and he is not too happy with the tree. He needs what the tree has, but the tree still has it. So what does the chainsaw do? The chainsaw cuts the tree down. So it slashes through the tree, and the tree falls in this direction, hopefully, for the chainsaw's sake. And then, once we have the chainsaw having cut down the tree, I need to get better at closing my boxes. I colored in with orange, but we'll live with it. Okay, so we have this chainsaw, it cuts down the tree. And once the tree's cut down in probably a slightly more efficient way that's not leaving so much wood at the bottom, the tree is now a log. It probably still has the leaves on it, but we'll assume that the cleaning process is part of the cutting process. So you have a log. I'm going to draw this in black. So you have a log, and I mean, usually it's not going to be completely plumb. It should have some shortening or it will get slightly skinnier as it gets to the top. But for modeling purposes, we will assume that it is a perfect cylinder so that it is easier to calculate the volume and whatnot. So we have this tree, and it's got rings. We'll say it's 4 years old, and obviously it's still going to have its face, but the it's not going to be as happy now, um, because if you no longer had feet or hair, you would probably not be too happy about that. I'm sorry if there's anyone out there who does not have feet or hair, um, but I understand it can be a touchy subject in some cases. So I'll close this in right here, and then grab our brown. And so we have our log here. So this is step one, and this is step two. And so now that we have the log, the actual process of creating a 2x4 is actually somewhat interesting. What they'll actually do is this log will be rolled into a machine, and the machine actually sort of strips it in a circular motion and flattens it out. Because if you just looked at the volume in terms of what it has to offer, if you just tried to tessellate the rectangles in here and get as many uh, pieces of wood out as you can, you're going to see that there's all these little triangles over here which are lost, and the capitalist system doesn't like that. So if you put it into this machine, it will actually strip somewhat in like a spiral shape, and you actually can get more of the wood that way. I don't know if that's exactly the process that they're doing today. I remember seeing a how it's made video, but basically this unhappy log will be peeled, somewhat like a banana, but more like a corn cob. So instead of drawing the colors that I would a banana, I will color it corn cob shaded. I That's the sentence, right? Um, so we have our corn cob, and so if you had corn on the cob, and then you would create a torque of sorts, and just kind of stick your teeth at some point here on the corn, and just start destroying all of the kernels in a circular fashion. That's at least how I would do it. So now after step three, when it goes into the machine, we have this we have this sheet of wood, and obviously this is going to be fairly long, the length of the log, to be exact. And so we have this sheet of wood, and so this wood is actually the inside color of uh, the the log itself. And so now we have a process that this log has been going through. Oh my gosh, I need to get better at coloring things in. Um, so screw it. Okay, so we have a sheet of wood, and so this wood is actually going to be, if you look at the dimensions, it should be 2x4. You would think that, because it's that's what 2x4 stands for. But the actual, if we section it off in the length, in the shape of a 2x4, you will see that it's a rectangle, and so you would think that this will be 2 to 4 and in inches, but it's actually not. It's something, actually. Let me just look up, just for sanity's sake, what the dimensions of a 2x4 are. 2x4 dimensions, because it seems like it would be a stupid question to ask. But okay, so they're actually saying that this is about 1.5, and this is 3.5. So it's sort of like when Apple claims that they're giving you an iPhone with 64 gigs on it, and then you look and it only has 58 because they've put 6 gigs worth of data already on it. And so technically they did give you a 64 gig, which I guess wouldn't necessarily be the best metaphor for this situation, but it's full of other crap that most of it's just things you don't need. But so if you have a 2x4, it's actually 1.5 by 3.5. But for the purposes of our description here, because now that we've gotten to step 4 and we're cutting the board into the 2x4s, we will start to get into what it actually means to be starving and mourning. So, if this tree was once a complete entity, then you would imagine that there'd be some sort of unity between each individual piece of wood. Possibly they'd be brethren of sorts, and so you get the idea that all these pieces of wood kind of know each other, but um, it would be a reasonable statement that these pieces of wood have gone through some trauma, because not only were they cut and peeled inside out by a machine that is not much unlike a mouth eating corn, um, they have now been cut up and separated from their brethren to be shoved into the shapes of buildings. So um, these pieces of wood have gone through a lot, and so what happens when you go through a traumatic experience like that is pieces of wood can go into somewhat of a depression. And it's actually interesting because you can actually change the physical attributions of a piece of material by how it was manufactured, whether it has certain quality ratings and whatnot. But that would be metaphorical to this perfectly exact representation of this piece of wood being sad. But depression is not just sadness. Depression is an overall chemical imbalance that overtakes you and affects your entire life. So this piece of wood, we'll say that through its depression, it forgets its daily meals, and it is now 1.45 by 3.25, which would be a significant difference. If you have your regular 2x4, then this would be like that. And so maybe this 2x4 isn't necessarily as desirable as the other pieces of wood. And you may think that that's a good thing. If the wood is not desirable, it won't be used in different it won't be used in different aspects of manufacturing. But what happens to undesirable wood when it's not used is it can be used for other purposes, like perhaps a fire, or perhaps a just being thrown to the curb, and that's not a good life to live. So I would understand that this piece of wood would be it would be starving in a sense, because it would not be receiving the nourishment that it deserves. But at the same time, it is mourning the loss of its brethren, which are each taken one by one to be brought into the manufacturing society. So I think we have a pretty finished picture here, and I want to make sure that I am not going too long with the segment, just so I'm not rambling on about the tortures of foliage. But if you have been watching this whole time, I want to thank you guys for watching. If you're watching on YouTube afterwards, or just on my channel and afterwards, then head over to my channel. There may be some playlists you enjoy. There's a whole slew of other pictures that I've drawn, probably with similar whimsy to their description. But like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching. I will be streaming on Wednesday. And on Wednesday, I do plan to actually do another cover, because I did have a request for another song. That song is Bobby McGee by Janis Joplin. I believe it's Janis Joplin. So if that tickles your fancy, or any other part of you, I will be performing that on Wednesday. So I hope to see you then. But until then, I want to thank you for watching, and if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel so you can see my videos or show your friends a lot easier. But that is all I have to say, so I will see you on Wednesday.